Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. It's me, Tiffany. If this is the first time you're here, I mostly do novels, graphic novels, manga. Occasionally I might dabble into a television show or a movie. So just to go ahead and jump into it, I have done a Snow White retelling video. I did a review of Gilded by Marissa Meyer. So I decided to do another retelling recommendation for Romeo and Juliet. I think this is probably Shakespeare's most popular or most well-known play, at least in America. I think probably every public school system makes you read this play. I understand why, even though it's not my favorite Shakespeare play. But I remember, I think in one video I mentioned that even though Romeo and Juliet isn't my favorite Shakespeare play, there were some retellings that are Romeo and Juliet inspired that I really enjoy. And there is a ton of Romeo and Juliet retellings. There's actually just a ton of Shakespeare retellings in general. I am not going to give a detailed review on each of these. I'm just going to say what these are about because I'm recommending these to you. I have read all these and I have enjoyed them and they're good enough to make this list. I'm trying to do a list where the books are popular enough that they should be easier to find in most libraries or bookstores, but I'm trying to avoid like the biggest well-known ones at the same time. So let's jump into it. Okay, so the first one I want to mention is These Violet Delights. So this one's going to be a duology. It does end, I'm not going to do spoilers, but it does end in a way that lets you know there's another book. And this one is going to be the one I start off with because it's probably the most different out of the other ones. This one is definitely more adult. There's definitely gruesome scenes in it. There's violent things in this. It talks about colonialism and a bunch of other things. So I do think this one is probably the most adult out of all of them, but I do think a teenager with the right maturity can and will enjoy this and understand the idea of what's going on. And I've also read this one most recently on the list and it was really, really good. So this is based in the 1920s and it's based off a Chinese woman who is an heiress and she's trying to prove everything to her family that she can rule the Scarlet Gang. At this time, Shanghai has been ruled by like the French, the Russians, the British, like a billion different peoples basically. So it definitely touches on the colonialism of just having invaders coming in and basically just taking control of everything. And then there is the White Flowers, which is the rival gang, and they're trying to assert dominance over the territory as well. So there's a lot of fighting for land and conflict, and then there's real monsters involved. So honestly, this is a bit of a loose retelling, but I don't know with the second book, is it gonna tie things in to make this more Romeo and Juliet together? But there are real monsters in this, and this has definitely fantasy elements to this. There's a lot of politics in this, and it's definitely not done in a super heavy way. And basically, you know, the line that goes like on the plague of both your houses, I think that's where the plot of this book came from. I'm almost certain, like I'm almost willing to bet money on it. And then, you know, there's like a plague and the monsters and all of that stuff in this. This book also has what I consider really good queer representation in this. And I just think this is a fun book to go into, but there's a lot of gore and there's a lot of politics and stuff. So this one's probably the most mature, as I mentioned on the list, but I definitely think this is worth your time. And yeah, there's going to be a second one. So if it doesn't feel as Romeo and Juliet as you would like, maybe the second one will live up to that. But I think this does it fine. I prefer loose retellings anyways instead of on the nose retellings. So if you're like me on that, this might be for you. So the next one came out recently as well, and I read this last year and I just enjoyed it. And if you get hungry off descriptions of food very easily, a fun love story is gonna make you hungry. They do great descriptions, or the author did great descriptions on food. And this story basically is about two Vietnamese American teenagers, and both of their families have pho shops, and they're basically rivals and they're across the street from each other. They knew each other in school and they just kind of avoided each other, and they end up liking each other, falling in love. And it's more of just like the star-crossed lover part of Romeo and Juliet. This one's very, I guess this was a lot fluffier than the last one, and this one's just a lot of fun if you just want a cute contemporary romance. And also, I love the fact that the author included so much Vietnamese culture in this. I mean, honestly, I'm not an expert, so I did have to look things up, but I like that when you're thrown into this story, it's not to say like you are expected to know everything, but the culture doesn't feel watered down for an audience that may not understand. But, you know, at the same time, anything that would be really complex is a little explained. And, you know, I think it's great to see, like, you know, different cultures and whatnot in books. And you get that, and you get, you know, the little, this book is so cute. I don't know if I'd say this is the greatest romance of all time, but this is a very fun romance. This is a fast read. The language is relatively simple. And I did listen to some of this on audiobook, because when I was reading through it, I think I got to like chapter 5, and there are a lot of Vietnamese words that I honestly don't know how to say. So I just restarted reading this, and I listened to the audiobook while reading this. I'd probably still butcher the Vietnamese words, but it was fun to hear those words. And like, you know, these characters also have Vietnamese names and stuff like that. So it was fun to put those together. So if you can do that, or if you enjoy doing things like that, I think that's a great way to consume this story. And I think it gave me the most out of it, you know. But this one is so, so good. So the next one that I'm going to recommend is a lot shorter, and it's called Street Love. This one is written in verse. Like, I'm not going to show each page, but it's written in verse. This is a very quick read, and like, I think this is only like, oh, there is extra content in this. I'm like, this is not 6 pages. It's 134 pages, and honestly, if you're like me and you like books in verse, sometimes it's really hard for the author, I guess, to make it feel like a story instead of too much like a poem, but there's got to be a good balance. I think the author of this did a great balance to this, and our characters are Junice and Damien, and they grow up in Harlem, and they live very different lives. Damien comes from a 2-parent household, and Junice lives with her grandmother, who does have felonies and is not mentally sound, but her mother is in prison. And this does talk about child protective services and whatnot, and I guess this one's more of like, you know, Damien's like, why when I go for a girl in that situation, but they do fall in love. This does have like chapters within chapters and stuff like that, and this definitely, I guess, is more cross-star lovers, and this is more about like economic differences and family differences and stuff like that. All of these are very loose retellings, but that's what I prefer, so that's what I'm recommending. And I think this one is a good read, and it just has a different perspective and a different spin on the story that I think a lot of people can appreciate. So the last one I'm going to recommend is American Panda. I read this last year as well. I read this in like 31 books in 31 days. This is a quick read, and this is probably the loosest retelling out of the 4 I mentioned, because this one, she's technically in college, and I guess this is probably more new adult than YA, but this has nothing really graphic in this. And she basically goes to MIT, and her family's trying to force her to be a doctor and keep up with her Taiwanese heritage, you know, and she's also born in America, so she's trying to balance out like her cultures, right? And her parents, who are Taiwanese, are very strict. Like, they kicked her brother out for being with a girl they do not like, and she is a germaphobe, so being a doctor is probably not the best thing, but she feels like she has no other choice. And then she falls for a Japanese guy who is really nice, and you know, her family, who is from Taiwan, there was a lot of conflict with Japan and Taiwan, and they're like, no Japanese men, no. Have a little bit of a, you know, they start forming a relationship and they fall in love, and this has to do with a lot of identity and culture and family expectations and doing what's for you and coming of age. And this book is a very quick read as well. The language is easy to read and it's pretty simple, but at the same time, you feel flourished after reading this. And this is not just about romance. This is so much more. The romance is actually a small part of this entire thing, even though most people that I see talk about this almost always talk just about the romance. There's a lot more to this, even though it doesn't look like there would be. But yeah, this is really good and probably my favorite one on the list. So guys, have you read any of these? Did you like them? Are you planning on reading any of these? Let me know in the comments section below. And if you like any more recommendation videos, let me know as well, whether they're retelling or not retellings. And I will see you later. Bye.